the pick'ems as well. All of that coming into play here for PCS1.
Yeah, I'd love to see it. I think PUBG is kind of making great strides in the way that the competitions are sort of being presented. Obviously, if you look back at last year, we had a lot of these leagues, and now we're sort of moving, at least at the moment, towards these sort of more ODC-esque, these more shorter-term kind of tournaments, which I think actually are great for viewing. You don't get that sort of viewer fatigue over the course of, a 5 or 6 week long season where you look at the first couple of weeks and you think, well, maybe these don't really feel like they matter all that much. I think you look at a four match day competition and you just have to think about every single match mattering. And so that's really great from at least a viewership perspective. I'm not sure necessarily the players will be too keen on having less chances to pick up the wins. But either way, it is what it is. And we've got 20 matches here in the PCS APAC Series 1. And obviously to show you how that's all sort of panning out, we get those first couple of days with Erangel, and then Miramar. And next week, we swap back over to the 3 Miramar, 2 Erangel days. So obviously, for yourself and I, Xenox, we're big fans of Erangel. We've been quite outspoken about that over the course of all the PUBG broadcasts we've done. So we're going to enjoy this first week.
Yeah, and of course, for those who weren't aware, maybe didn't quite watch the Charity Showdown, Sandhawk was removed from the pool very, very shortly prior to that tournament starting. It seems, of course, now that has translated over to PCS1 to having just the steady Erangel Miramar. I wouldn't be surprised, this is just me speaking now, Jordan, but I wouldn't be surprised in the future if it's almost like getting sort of Vikendi ready to slot in and take that match 3. We had Sandhawk take that slot for 2019. I wouldn't be too surprised if we head to a bit of snow later, or maybe by the end of the year, for instance. We've been seeing, obviously, a lot of changes to that map outside of the esports scene, but I'd like to see it eventually, maybe not right now, but I'm happy to see that it's just Erangel and Miramar. And the split, the only thing I will say is I would have personally preferred if it was more like 3-2, 2-3, so we would have had a bit more of an even split. But as you said, this first week tonight and of course Saturday night is going to be predominantly Erangel, so we'll see if the players are able to adjust to that. There are going to be some teams that will be better equipped on Miramar, and they'll have to kind of wait till next week to really shine potentially.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly something that we discussed quite extensively during the Charity Showdown. We kind of recognized a couple of the teams were performing a little bit better on Miramar. I don't know, again, we're going to have to wait and see, because things generally tend to change when we look at the teams that have come in. Obviously, there's a few teams that didn't play in the Charity Showdown, so we do have obviously a little bit of an insight as to how the teams that did play in the Charity Showdown might perform here. But once you throw an extra 3 or 4 different teams in the mix, that really changes everything. It changes the rotations, it changes the drop locations, it changes all that sort of stuff. And I was sort of doing a little bit of statting, as I like to do, working on the stats, working on the numbers and that kind of thing. And I worked out that there was I think it was about 42% of the players in Series 1 actually didn't compete in Charity Showdown. So it's quite a significant change when you really think about it. It's nearly half of the lobby are actually different players. So for however many conclusions you can draw from Charity Showdown, I'm not really sure that there are necessarily too many, to be quite frank, with such a massive shift up in players and teams.
Yeah, just having a look at the notes that we both sort of contributed to, it's almost half of the Vietnam teams have got new players. Almost. Very, very close to that. Whereas like Thailand, it's only, of course, MSC, which we very briefly touched on. And as the night continues, we will talk more about them because they are a very, very intriguing roster, picking up Elotic and Yoshi. A lot of history, of course, around that name. And as you mentioned, MVP of the Thailand series. Looking at Oceania, though, it was only, of course, the addition of Carnage. And then Indonesia had a massive change of only Entry Fragger and Man returned from Charity Showdown for those 2 teams.
Yeah, obviously coming through from Victim FTF, which is kind of what Eagle Sentinel Shooter has sort of formed from or come from in a way. So I think, there is a little bit of translation across from the Indonesian region, but like you say, not a huge amount. Even the same, like we talk about Philippines as well, Bahamut Gaming, not a single player the same as what we saw for Archangel Predator for obvious reasons. So there's again, such a huge shift up in competition. I don't know how many scrims or anything like that necessarily have been going on in the lead up to Series 1. I assume there's been quite a few, so I assume the majority of teams have probably figured out where they want to be going. But what I am interested to see, Xenox, when we do actually end up getting into game, which I believe we are going to be doing relatively shortly, is how some of the drop locations change up. Obviously we did see quite a bit of contest at some times during the Charity Showdown, and whether or not that's going to continue to persist here in Series 1 remains to be seen, I suppose. Maybe some of the teams that were contesting have not been able to come through to Series 1, I should say. I remember, in particular, Made in Thailand was a team that we saw sort of getting into a lot of these early engagements, and they're not here. So does that open up maybe a bit of an easier time for some of the teams that they were dropping on top of?
I know for a fact that, Carnage, for instance, want to be going South Georgia Ball. They're going to be contesting, or at least were contesting in scrims. So you're right in saying that. You do wonder that at least in scrims is when all of that would have been sorted out. For those who aren't aware, the scrims for PCS, at least in the APAC region, they've been very topical. We'll just leave it at that. So you're not going to get the best practice. It's not as simple as that. And for those teams who maybe are new to coming into this PCS region for APAC, they might have taken a bit of a surprise to that. Whereas, of course, the likes of Atletico, Astra, Fury, and not just them, but also obviously all the other teams, Divine, Cerberus, DIC, pretty much all the Thailand teams, they would have a much better footing going into those scrims, being able to get their drop locations, and then obviously coming into the main event, they should be able to get, for the most part, their drops that they want. It's those new teams coming in, the Bahumats, for instance, some of the Indonesian teams, Carnage, they're the ones that are going to be fighting the most, you'd think.
No, I mean, I think Carnage is a particularly interesting team to take a look at here, because I think they're probably the one that you would expect to struggle the most. And that's not necessarily because of the players or the individuals on the roster, but I think more so the circumstances that they come into, right? If we take into the context of how the Australian teams were, or the Oceanic teams were able to perform in Charity Showdown, and the fact that they were struggling with some of the meta, I guess, within the APAC region, and obviously on top of that, they have the ping issue there as well. I think for them, it's going to be the kind of the biggest wake-up call, seeing how these first couple of games go and how they're sort of able to integrate into this new sort of a competitive environment that they may not necessarily be used to, obviously, for the majority of these players. In fact, I think all of them, most of their career would have been within the ANZ region. So I think there's going to be a bit of a jump and a bit of a learning period for them over the course of today, and maybe over the course of day number 2 as well.
Yeah, very ready. Going to be heading into our first match of the day very shortly. It is going to be Erangel, of course, to kickstart us here for PCS1 APAC region. Game 1 underway, Jordan. And while every game is, of course, going to matter, you do not want to be leaving anything to chance, anything down to the final few games. It's a clean slate, though, for the majority of these teams, of course, who participated in the Charity Showdown. They're going to be wanting to put in a better performance. What's an intriguing stat, though, Jordan, is of the top 5 from Charity Showdown, only 2 ended up making it here to PCS 1 APAC. Missing out was first place Division X, fourth place Archangel Predator, and fifth place Made in Thailand, all not making it to PCS 1. So that means, realistically, Q Confirmed, Buriram United certainly are going to be favorites in a regard, but it's really should be an open field here.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you as well. I mean, you look to Q Confirm, who we have on our screen right now, and they sort of started off in the Charity Showdown day at number 1 with a phenomenal performance, but slowed down toward the end of things. Now, in fact, actually, as we're alluding to right now, we're going to get a bit of an insight as to what PUBG Analytics thinks of how things are going to pan out there. You can see on the left of your screen just a little bit of a sneak peek as to maybe what we should be expecting in terms of the placements for this competition. I think one of the other teams that you probably want to mention to talk about, or a few of the other teams that we probably want to focus on here, are Golden Cat, who came 6th in the Charity Showdown, and obviously been able to qualify through here again. Divine Esports and DIC, both coming from Vietnam, also performed reasonably well, sitting in 8th and 7th respectively in Charity Showdown. So for me, those are probably the teams alongside, obviously, Boomerang, alongside Q Confirmed, to keep an eye on, at least coming through from the Charity Showdown. But when you look at other teams that have come through in their region in first place, Cerberus, they came first in the Vietnamese region, and they were only 12th in Charity Showdown. So it may be a bit of an underperformance from Cerberus when we last got to take a look at them.
They wouldn't have been the only one, though, really. When you look at what Astra sort of put up in that first event, there were quite a few of those teams that probably didn't play to their best that they would have thought they would be able to perform. I think Buriram United was the team that probably lived up to their expectations the most. Q Confirm was one as well who probably lived up to expectations. Golden Cat started very, very well in the Charity Showdown, as we have to on your screen now, but they did kind of sort of just lag towards the end of the season. They dropped out of the top 5 going into the last couple of games, like the last 6 or 7 games, for instance. And one thing to note for this team in particular that myself and you as well, probably Jordan, came to know was that it's a very team orientated team. There's not too much individual firepower that's like, oh wow, this one player is their star player. They do play as a team, so they win and lose as a team.
Yeah, definitely. And you're probably going to see that throughout this competition as well. I think looking maybe at a team like Q Confirm, you sort of see a couple of standout players there. You look at Gems and Jowman as the two that seem to really be leading from the front, at least in the fragging department during Charity Showdown. But I think you can sort of throw a lot of that out the window, right? With a sort of a new competition coming in here. Maybe certain teams were having a good comp, maybe certain teams were having a bad comp. And there's only so much history that you can sort of look into before you get a bit of an idea as to what's going to happen in a competition like this, because at the end of the day, it's sort of just a new opportunity starting from a clean slate for teams to get the ball rolling. Maybe they've been working on some things in the last few weeks or so and have sort of shored up some of the issues that we saw from them in Charity Showdown. And obviously for those teams that didn't even play in Charity Showdown, then it's going to be sort of a new experience for them coming into this as well. So we have a bit of a rotation coming out here past Q Confirm.
Wait, hang on. Star is Astra? I think that's just I must have misspelled that one. For a second, I was like, "Who is Star?" I saw them on the when they were just driving by, and I was like, "What?" Anyway,
yeah, I was wondering that as well.
I was like, "Hang on, did we mess up a team that qualified and we didn't even talk about it?"
I guess their logo is the star. To be fair.
Yeah, but they're okay. Well, look, whatever. Q Confirm close by to them, the Yellows, just south of Ruins. Astra, of course. We saw them actually try and get these sort of positions early on in Charity Showdown, and this goes to sort of just the way that this region plays, APAC as a whole, very fast pace, wanting to get to the compounds. Phase 2, generally, in this case, Astra on the move very quickly into Phase 1. Like, we've still got 4 minutes, and they've already gone over to those Yellows because, for instance, and one that I can just remember off the top of my head from one of the matches in Charity Showdown, they sent, like, I think Linksy there by himself, and he got breached at the beginning of Phase 2, end of Phase 1, that early on, they were like shocked. So I think that what that sort of entails is that these teams that maybe aren't used to playing in SEA need to pick up the pace. And it's, of course, usually going to be the Oceanic teams.
Yeah, definitely. And, similar to that when that game where they went Ruins, Zoidmate went Ruins early, kind of got isolated and rushed down by a team as well. So I think you're probably going to be seeing, at least in the case of Astra maybe, that they do tend to play a little bit more together. I mean, I'm just sort of making assumptions right now. I have no idea really whether they are going to be doing that or not, but I'm interested to see whether or not they do make that adaptation to sort of play a little bit more grouped up as opposed to sort of those 3-1 splits or the very heavy like kind of split gameplay that we used to see from them in Charity Showdown.
Well, that's the thing, though. You also don't want to concede to the region and sort of play into their hands, because that's probably what these Vietnamese and Thailand teams want, is when you come in and you play against us, you got to play our way. And to a degree, that's probably what needs to happen. But you also need to sort of adapt yourself as a team coming into it, rather than just sort of falling to the norm. And that's what, what we've seen from a team like Fury, for instance, in the past in these international tournaments. They've been able to do generally pretty well, which is why they did finish middle of the pack in Charity Showdown. Divine Esports is a very interesting team as well themselves, as we head on over to MSC. And, well, I mean, if we're going to say interesting, this team is probably the most interesting team. Myoga Esports as well, both of them up towards Everest, and both of them new to PCS as well this season.
Yeah, definitely. Taking control of Everest this early on in the piece is going to be quite a good position. A lot of information, valuable information can be gained from being the team at the top of there. So for now, MSC, you like to see the moves that they're making. What I also like to see here, Xenox, is, a bit of a slower start to the competition, right? We're 7 minutes in. We haven't seen anyone down yet. We've still got 64 players alive. And I think that's quite good in just giving the teams a bit of an opportunity to work their way into the competition, start understanding how the rotations are going to be playing out and what other teams are going to be doing. But might hold that thought, because Q Confirm might be losing a player relatively shortly.
Jayers from Q Confirm is, well, probably not long for this world. Of course, as you mentioned, No, we haven't had any deaths. One is very much imminent. Can he find one to go with him? Does get a headshot, but of course by himself. Doesn't have anyone to trade with him. And Maogi Esports will be on the board first.
Well, I think we might have lost Xenox, everybody, but that's okay because I'm still here. Luckily, we'll be able to keep on rolling. Looks like Zoid, mate, has managed to find himself an initial knock here for Astra. And it seems as though Astra are going to try and continue to push the issue. Obviously, something that we'll wait and see whether or not they're going to be able to capitalize on. Y8 does get res back on up. Here comes Linksy to knock down Jun, and Y8 tries to heal himself on up. Zoid mate's certainly going to be eager to finish him off. And doesn't check the corner properly, but he's not going to be punished for it. It's all good. All well and done for Astra. They'll find their first kill of the competition. As Divine watches teams rotating past them, they're in a pretty decent position to pick up a couple of frags for now because Golden Cat is helping them out as well. It's BG that's trying to rotate past that, and it doesn't look like that's going to be too comfortable for them at all. Taking a quick look at the map as well, as that rotates up to the northern side. So a big hard shift actually away from the Gatka Fields, or at least the southern part of the island. I guess Gatka Fields are still in the discussion, but for a team that we were talking about a little bit earlier, MSC, who was at the top of Everest, they're going to be very happy to see a shift like that. Golden Cat confirming the kill onto Nikki. And I guess for now, we'll just wait and see how these teams start to rotate out. Golden Cat continuing to try to push the issue, I think, there against Divine. MC and Levi's, the two remaining members here for Divine Esports, luckily have at least been able to grab themselves a couple of kills, courtesy of NAMC. So worst case scenario, if they go out here without any placements, at least they've been able to pick up some points. At least they've been able to start getting rolling. You'll see on the kill feed there, Linksy does get knocked down by Elonix. And for Astra, they certainly would be hoping to turn their fortunes around from the charity showdown. They didn't perform quite to the level they would have liked to there. And maybe another team that is in that same boat is Fury, who we see on the rotate right now through the southern part of the map, just driving along the coast. They're the team that actually has the longest rotate as I look at the mini-map on PCS_map if you're interested. I think Fury had a pretty solid performance up to day 4. It was kind of day 4 that really let them down, but they were certainly within the discussion going into the final day. And they have, at the moment, been looking like the best team from the Oceanic region. So I think if you're from that region, then you've probably got your eggs in the Fury basket at the moment. We'll be eager to see how they're able to perform over the course of today. MSC, though, was one of the teams that we did highlight. And an interesting part about MSC was that they didn't play in the Charity Showdown. They are a team that qualified through first place from the Thailand series. And they also have the MVP of the Thailand series in Yoshi, who will certainly be a player to keep an eye on, I dare say, if he's able to perform to that level once again here in APAC Series 1. Waikika Mukau going to be scoping out the compound. Certainly been a solid player for Fury of late. He's, I mean, debatably even been looking like one of the best players in the ANZ region. So I've heard. You can see Carnage getting involved in the discussion here as well. Was Buriram rotating into the buildings in the middle of Gatka Field, and they've gotten there okay. A couple of shots headed in their direction from Carnage, but it does seem like most teams have managed to get their way into the circle quite safely. Only a few having dropped out. But most teams are okay. I guess for BG, with only one player alive, Divine and GB as well, struggling a little bit. But aside from that, it seems as though most teams are fairly healthy. Hello.
Give you.
I love that.
How long was it?
Too long. Felt way too long.
Have I missed anything? I actually don't know yet.
Not really. There's been a few frags. Divine copped a little bit. BG copped a little bit on a rotation. We had a massive hard shift up to the north. Now it looks like we've got a massive hard shift down to the east as well, right on top of Gold and Cat, going over towards Ruins, back over towards Pachinki. And that's kind of right where Astra was, and it no longer are. So I guess they won't be particularly keen on seeing how that has panned out.
Well, I mean, look, the good news is I didn't miss much. That also means good news is there's probably a lot still to come very, very soon. I'm just loading up everything on my end, though, Jordan. If you want to just go for another minute or so.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
I know it's such a hard thing for you.
Look, I can go all day if you want, Xenox. Carnage, however, are going to have to take quite a long rotation. They're coming across from the western side of the Gatka fields. Monty being one of the newer players to join this team and join the region, I suppose. Obviously, after having turned 18, he's come into this roster, and his first opportunity to qualify for an international event was rather successful. Looks like it's going to be an interesting day for Carnage, I dare say, with the way that these circles have been shifting. Massive hard shifts again. And Day Trade have an opportunity here. Oh, Bryn, the drive-by, and Poochills goes down. That's not a great start for Day Trade Gaming, who did really struggle in the Charity Showdown. We do see, however, Jukesy throwing a bit of damage back into Carnage. So there was a moment of excitement for Carnage, and it's quite quickly ripped away as Veronica finishes Bryn off. And we saw Monty go down to Jukesy as well. It's not been a great rotation there for Carnage. They had to go down south, and they've gone past a few teams. Hasn't been too comfortable at all for them. Day Trade do pick up 3 kills as a result of that, and Carnage is the first team eliminated, which I guess at the end of the day is not a huge surprise. Again, we were talking about this in the pre-show. They might struggle a little bit in their first day of competition because it is a bit of a step up coming into PCS APAC from just being within the ANZ region. And for a lot of these players, they haven't had that experience before. So looking forward to seeing how they're going to go in the rest of today. But obviously not an ideal start. 1 point out of game number 1 for Carnage. Fury Australia, however, have got themselves a 2-2 split at the moment. It is Waikika Mukau alongside Ronan in the center of the circle. Jukesy and Insight, who are watching at the moment, will take the late rotation and join their teammates, I would say, in a little bit. And we do see them just leaving the compound now on the map, which will incidentally also show us where the next circle is going to be headed. Ooh, that black looked like it was going to be a bit dangerous. Again, another hard shift, this time straight down to the southwest on top of Q Confirm. And it's such a strange way that these circles have been shifting since the Charity Showdown, because I really don't think you can kind of hedge your bets towards the center these days. It seems like it's really headed to the outskirts more so. Either way, you'll be happy if you're Q Confirmed to see that kind of a circle shift. Same for Fury Australia, Buriram as well. Not going to be too disappointed to see it. Naogi Esports as well are a fairly central team at the moment. I don't mind this 2-2 split from Fury. Again, they're continuing to persist with that. They've got quite a good established control of the southeastern side of the map. This will be Eagle Sentinel Shooter headed in the direction of Day Trade Gaming, and perhaps a few free points here because Day Trade have already lost a player. Flash goes down as well now, and it's a 2-on-4. I dare say right now, Sentinel Shooter will be quite eager to pick up those points, get the ball rolling. God does manage to catch Matey in the back as well, so there's a multiple sort of a team engagement going on right now. Bahamut Gaming really relying just on God at the moment to get as many points out of this as he can. He's tagged down to 13 HP. The heals are coming across from his stims, but he won't last too long, and Sentinel Shooter will grab themselves 3 points out of the engagement. They get rid of Bahamut Gaming, and they cause a bit of a problem for Day Trade, but there is a Mosquito still hanging around. Venotica does get the knock onto entry fragger. Looks like that's going to be not too big of an issue for Sentinel Shooter. We'll turn our attention over to MSC, who are currently breaching Gearbox, and that's gone relatively okay. A 1-for-1. The grenade, however, does finish off Janku, and Gearbox out of the picture. They did lose one player on the entry there, MSC, but they will be pretty happy to take control of a compound that is currently within the circle. Yoshi Minburi, the man on your screen, the MVP from the Thailand series, is certainly a player to keep an eye on, I dare say. Levi's and NAMC have an idea that CVD is hanging around, and that was a very good grenade. If Levi's chucks another one, that's gone a little bit too deep, still does some damage. CVD, I'm not sure whether he has meds or not. Looks like he's doing something. Maybe Divine have run out of grenades after that as well. Golden Cat will need to be careful because they have a team hanging around quite close by. NAMC catches the kill onto JJ Leo, which is going to be a nice extra point in the back pocket of Divine. CVD just watching for his teammates, I'd say that. Keeping a bit of an eye on what's going on at the top of the road. Time for Fury to get involved in the discussion here as they're being breached by Sentinel Shooter. It's a 4-on-2 right now. And Fury will be hoping that Ronan and Waikika can do a bit of a work here. This grenade from Ronan could be big. It's jumped out the window. Man goes down, knocked, but Ronan traded back by a grenade himself. Cerberus are jumping in and having their say in this engagement as well, but Ronan is confirmed. Waikika gets one. Insight helps out as well. Good rotations coming in. Good assistance even coming in from Fury, but Waikika might need a little bit more because this engagement is still going on. He's holding the stairs, which is a solid position. Ronan confirms the kill onto Man. And we've taken a little bit of a peek here at the way that the circle is shifting. It's right on top of Fury. It's right on top of Waikika Mukau. So if they can lock down this position, they're in a good spot to actually finish the game off in their favor. Obviously, Waikika Mukau must be aware that he's still got someone hanging around in his building. Golden Cat still dealing with their engagement as well. And for Sentinel Shooter, that is going to be the end of their run. 12th place and a nice few points on the board for Fury. They did lose one player, but they've locked down a solid position. Victim Rise eliminated, and that is courtesy of Golden Cat, who do continue to lock down their position, but they're going to have to move, and they're going to have to do it quickly. Circle's going to be shifting shortly. DIC lucky that the circle has shifted quite significantly in their direction because they're not really in a great spot. They're out in the open. Luckily, they don't have to move. Astra, team that we haven't checked in with in a while, still have 4 players alive. One of the top teams from the ANZ region. Golden Cat certainly aren't having a particularly enjoyable time now trying to head directly into the position that Astra is holding. But MSC is behind Astra, and they could be causing a bit of a problem. You can see Nikus down low, Extreme the same, Lynxy the same. They're all going to have to heal up. They're going to need to try and provide them some space. Divine have been knocked out in the meanwhile. It's just engagements all over the place right now here in PCS APAC Series number 1. Maogi Esports have been eliminated. Buriram have been eliminated. And all in the meanwhile, MSC are just trying to get themselves into a position to deal with Astra, who are putting themselves in a position to deal with Golden Cat. The trades definitely favoring Golden Cat at this point. I think it's a 2-4-3 favoring the team from Thailand, but Tong K sees his teammates, one of them burning alive in their own Molotov, and Nikus is going to have to get all the boys up in the smoke. Plenty of time available. That smoke is still going to persist for a while. Lynxy bleeding out quite quickly. He must have been second or third. Nox, Zoid, mate, will fall to Tonke, and now Tonke has a chance to put Astra in the ground. A grenade going to be thrown on in as well from 74L1 DIC. Astra just do not seem to be able to take a break right now, and they are out in 7th place. Craziness. Somehow Tonke has outlasted Astra, but he won't outlast them for too long. 74L1 from DIC has just eliminated 2 teams. DIC working their way further and further into those placement points, but they may now be figuring out what has just happened to them and being on the receiving end of it because Cerberus have arrived. Another hard shift, this time We've gone back over to the west. It's Fury Australia that are trying to breach Q confirm, and that has not worked out at all. Waikikamuka, you can see the last player to survive alongside Jukesy, and those two are out of the picture. So we remain now with 3 teams: MSC, Cerberus, and Q confirm. It's going to be Q confirm, you have to imagine, to win from here. MSC and Cerberus in an engagement together. And Yoshi Minburi goes down. So Elonix will be the last sole survivor for MSC, trying to hang on for perhaps an extra couple of placement points. He's just outside of the circle. But he'd be quite happy to see Cerberus and Q confirm get into an engagement that maybe he can third party. Q confirm, this is going to likely be the easiest game that they've ever played. The circle's gone right on top of them, and both Cerberus and MSC have to rotate on in. A nice extra point picked up by Elonix, but it is going to mean the end of his game. Basil just surviving on 4 HP. Could have been a little bit dangerous had he gone down. Now Smell and Subang, the last remainders for Cerberus. A 2-on-3 for them, as Basil's confirmed by Jowman. Another good start for Q confirm here, and I'm not incorrect. I'm going to check this in a second, but I think they actually might have won game 1 of the charity showdown as well. At the very least, they started well in game 1. That is for sure. It was Golden Cat that actually won game 1 in charity showdown, but Q confirm had 13 kills, so I think they were first place after game 1. Either way, looks like they might win game 1 here in PCS number 1. Subang and Smell are going to try and make it as difficult as possible for them. I think Jiaoman might have spotted Subang out there. Can see some shots going back in the direction of Q confirm though. Well, the circle's gone right on top of Subang. So where does Q confirm go from here? Now they don't have the circle advantage. They have the numbers advantage. But if Smell's able to keep Subang relatively comfortable, there may still be a world in which we see Q confirm drop this into second place. Things have certainly slowed down, though, as we've headed into the later circles. Absolute chaos in phases 5 and 6. Does tend to result in phase 7 and beyond slowing down a little bit. So I think for the moment, Cerberus are going to be quite content with just waiting to see what Q confirm are going to do. Smoke's going down. Smell still has 1 in the back pocket. Plenty of meds to play with, but he has to move now. The circle is not favoring him. If he can get behind a tree, he can help Subang to hold off the onslaught of Q confirm. Looks like he'll just manage to get across to safety. Shots coming in from Q confirm, but Smell's okay. He'll be healing back on up with the stims. Subang is the key. He is the one that's going to hold down that strong position. Q confirm will not move until they have to. "18 seconds until the circle starts to encroach." And just having a look at the cover in front of Q confirm, there is absolutely nothing to play with. You can see from this bird's eye view that they really don't have anywhere to go. So they'll be hoping that they're going to be able to get a bit of a favorable circle shift, which to an extent they get. Jiaoman is still able to hold his position. Smell's going to have to move again, and he doesn't have any more smokes, I don't believe. This will be where life starts to get a bit difficult for Cerberus. If Q confirm can finish Smell off as he tries to cross into safety, They'll find themselves a 3-on-1, and from there, surely they can't drop it. But if Cerberus can continue to hold on to a crossfire, then there's always a chance. Having a look at the cover in front of Smell here, there's not a whole lot really to play with. I think that tree to his left is probably still not inside the circle. Subang is going to try start chucking some smokes out to get Smell across. How many does he have available? This is the second. That first one is looking pretty good. But where does Smell go? That is the question. Is there a tree for him to play from? If he can maybe get to the tree that Jiao Man is looking at right now, I think that might just be inside the circle. Smell's taking his time, though. He doesn't want to run through the smoke while Q-Confirm are pre-firing it. Off he goes. He has gotten across to the tree. And that is inside the safe zone, actually. So again, it's tense. It really is tense. It continues to shift backwards and forwards one way or another way. Who does this really favor? It is a numbers advantage for Q-Confirm, but Cerberus Esports, if they can get a knock as these rotations come out, finally an exchange of damage. Svit putting some good shots into Smell. They know, of course, exactly where he is. They only have to watch one angle. But this is going to be it for Q-Confirm. They have to do a bit of a Hail Mary play. It's Jiao Man to draw the fire while the other two look for some damage. If he can get to the ditch, if he can get to the care package, he's got something to play with. He's got a bit of safety. And they start to encroach on Cerberus. A headshot onto Gems from Subang does put him low in that smoke, but the damage not enough to confirm a knock. And that is exactly what Cerberus are looking for at the moment. Subang copping some more damage. Smell pushes up to the rock. Q-Confirm now throwing those smokes down onto Subang's position. Frag grenades as well, but so far he's untouched. Jiao Man, that one starts to look a little bit better. It hasn't maybe gone deep enough. A bit of a tag onto Subang. Molly's flying in his direction as well, and he's certainly starting to feel the pressure. Luckily for Q-Confirm, they were center circle for such a long time that they haven't had to use any of this utility. Subang really needs to find a knock right now. Him or Smell, as the grenades start to come back in for Cerberus Esports, but they're nowhere near Q-Confirm. Finally, someone's drawn some blood. Svit has managed to knock Smell down. It's all onto Subang, but he is spammed underneath the tractor, and there's not a whole lot that he could do about it. A very, very slow and long victory in the end for Q-Confirm, but they do get it over the line, and a super solid performance to start things off here in PUBG Continental Series 1 for APAC. It's Q-Confirm that have pretty much done exactly what they did in the Charity Showdown. They got such a solid performance in Charity Showdown match number 1. 13 kills and a third place there. This time, maybe not quite as explosive, but still a win on the board and quite a lot of points there for Q-Confirm. 18 total points in the end out of that one. Cerberus won't go away disappointed, though. They did pick up 11 MSC as well. We did wonder how they were going to go, this team from Thailand that came through as the first seed, and they pick up a third place. So not too bad of a result for the Thai region, and obviously Vietnam as well, keeping themselves in the mix with Cerberus, who probably, to be fair, didn't perform as well as they would have liked to have in the Charity Showdown. They only came in 12th place. So a much better start for them here in Continental Series 1. And obviously being the first seeded team to come through from Vietnam, we probably would have expected them to perform quite well, and they have upheld their end of the bargain there. What's interesting about this in particular is that you do have 2 of the first seeded teams coming through from their respective regions up in the top 3. That, of course, being MSC and Cerberus. As far as the Oceanic teams are concerned, Fury not putting in a bad shout, but that late rotation right on top of Q-Confirm, perhaps a little ill-advised. Obviously easy to say, easy to sit there from our position. And for Fury, they definitely... Jordan. Oh, hey. Oh, what's going on?
I've just been sitting back enjoying the lovely solo casting that you've been putting on. I've got to say, though, looking at that leaderboard, the top 3, not much of a surprise there. I think, you've said it best. Really, that match sort of maybe giving a glimpse to the future for the next 19 games to come.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me right now, it's still early days. I don't think you can draw too many conclusions from that. Again, pretty good stuff from some of the top teams, but then there was a few that we sort of expected to maybe see a little bit more from. I'd be looking at Buriram, for example, they only finished in 11th place. Astra had a bit of a rough time there as well in 10th. So still plenty more discussion points, obviously, heading into round number 2.
Yeah, plenty more Alpha Sky to come as well. We're going to go to a quick break when we come back. Match 2 on the other side.